taking all your big equipment?
It's all packed up.
In Israel, we have two different levels of cemeteries. We have cemeteries for civilian people, and there, each family built their own headstone, whatever they want, any design, okay. And there is also military cemetery, where all the graves are exactly the same. In Israel, when you are a soldier for that amount of time, you are not the property of your parents. You are the property of the state. For good and for not so good. The parents have no say regarding the way that the grave will be. That's why you see the graves are so, exactly the same. Who can be buried in military cemeteries? In military cemeteries, only soldiers in duty. It's not like in America. The wives are not here. When you served in the army and it was your career and you retired and you passed away, you will not be buried in military cemetery. Only soldiers in duty. When can you be a soldier? You can be a soldier between age 18 and 21. You can be a soldier when you belong to the reserve, meaning only the reserve period. The 2 weeks a year, not the rest of the year. Or when you are building a career in the army. The reason for the death is irrelevant. It can be a car accident or it can be a combat. Most of them died killed in combat. So only soldiers are here. I cannot find, better words than saying that we as civilian people we see, an honor to be buried in a military cemetery. I told you that we have lost more than 23,000 since Israel became a state. They are buried in military cemeteries like this. Next week, on the National Memorial Day, we will be in Jerusalem. It's Monday, 11 o'clock. There will be a siren for 2 minutes. These cemeteries will be packed. There will be so many people here. And each cemetery will have another, minister from the cabinet and the generals from the army. So in each cemetery there will be a memorial service with the families and the related ones that will be around each grave. We are here today because of that man, the hero, who is a Canadian. I believe that you know his story. Born in 1921, grew up in Canada, described as a person with his behavior was a little, problematic.
He was a lone wolf.
And he fell in love with aviation when he was already a young boy. He wanted to join the Canadian Air Force. He was rejected because of his behavior. He took a boat. He sailed to Glasgow to join the Royal Air Force. They rejected him. Do you know why? He forgot his birth certificate. He took a boat all the way back to Canada. just to get the birth certificate. And once again on a boat to Glasgow. And he was flying on behalf of the Royal Air Force, the British, Air Force. They posted him in Malta. And his mission was to defend Malta, which is an island, a target that the Germans wanted to bomb. He's known as the hawk. You know the bird, the prey bird. Hawk of Malta. Hawk. Thank you. Of Malta. He shot down 27 enemy airplanes.
Wow.
He was wounded, sent to a hospital. Got his degrees, as a pilot. Went back to Canada, received the recognition, the public honor of Canada, and he started to fly for the Canadian Air Force. He was offered to fly for Latin American, countries where he could make a lot of money. He refused. And then back to Europe. The war is not finished. And there he shot down a few more airplanes, enemy airplanes, altogether 31. He's the ace of the aces. He is the, there's no one that was able to shut down so many enemy airplanes as he did. And when he left, when the Second World War was over, you have to understand from where his drive is coming. His drive is coming from the Bible, from the connection to the Old Testament. He grew up in a very, very, Christian religious family with a lot of love, to the Bible, to the Old Testament. That's his drive, the Old Testament, which will bring him to, when he heard that a new state is going to be established, and I'm talking about the state of Israel, he rejected all the good offers that he received from other countries. Come and make money. He said, no, I'm going to volunteer and to help, building the new state. It was 1948. Israel became a state on May 14th, 1948, but not yet with an army. Officially, the Israeli Defense Force, the army, will be established only 2 weeks later. So Buzz, its nickname, George Frederick Beurling, helped to fly into Israel, airplanes, in order to help. Israel is a country, a state with 600,000 people. That's all. That's the number of the Jewish people at that time, being attacked by 5 armies: Egypt, Iraq, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon. 600,000, not yet even an army. People like him volunteered to fly from Europe, planes, to build the Israeli Air Force to be. And it was the 20th of May, 1948. He took off in Rome, from Rome Airport, Italy, together with another pilot who was Jewish, Yehuda Cohen. So they were two flying this plane, and something happened, a technical crash or something. The plane fell and they both died. He was buried in Rome, not in Canada. People are saying that that day when they buried him in Rome in 1948, all the Jewish people in the city of Rome came to the funeral. He's not Jewish. They all came to his funeral. They closed their, business places. And they all wanted to pay tribute to this great person. 2 years later, his family, by the way, the Israeli Air Force officially will be established 10 days later. And one of the first things that they did was to give him, after he died, an Israeli rank, a lieutenant, second, with a number in the Israeli army, in the Israeli Air Force. And 2 years later, his family agreed to open the grave and to move him to Israel. And this is where he's buried.
Of course. Just a couple of other things. Aaron mentioned the co-pilot with Beurling on this day. Yehuda Cohen. Beurling was born in Verdun region of Montreal, and his co-pilot, his English name, is actually Leonard J. Cohen, who was born just a couple of years earlier than this, also in Montreal. Aaron, I don't know if you're familiar with Leonard Cohen. But there's a bit of a controversy. I was just reading on the bus. There's some that suspect that his plane was actually sabotaged. Who would want to sabotage his plane? And this is what I was asking Aaron on the bus. Aaron was just sharing with us as we were driving in the kind of the mixed relationship that Britain had with Israel. It was the Balfour Declaration that opened the door to the idea of the Jewish homeland coming back into existence. But as World War II and in the 30s, the Brits blockaded and threw into jail Jews that tried to come here. And Beurling fought for the RAF, the Royal Air Force, the British Air Force, late in the war. And he was a great pilot. And the Brits had a very good relationship with the oil-rich Arabs of the region. Did they want their star pilot flying for the Jews in Israel's War of Independence? Not at all. They didn't. And there was a fear that other pilots would want to come here and fight for Israel as well, along with Beurling. So there's some that suspect sabotage for that reason. But to me, one of the big takeaways here, and just kind of looking at the big picture, is God has always used Gentiles in Israel's history. In this case, a Christian Gentile. When we look at the genealogies of Jesus found in Matthew and Luke, guess what? There's a few Gentile names there. They're female names, guys. Okay, who do we think of? Rahab, Rahav in Jericho that aided. Okay, what about this gal by the name of Ruth? This Gentile gal. Okay, now listen to this. Our Old Testament and the Jewish Bible are the same books. They're identical. However, they're ordered just a little bit differently. Our Bible is roughly chronological. It's pretty hard to make it perfectly chronological because so many of the books overlap. But the Jewish Bible is the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, and then the prophets in the middle, and then ends with the writings. Okay? Psalms, Proverbs, and so on. The last book of the Jewish Bible is Chronicles. And the last verse in the Jewish Bible is quoting this guy by the name of Cyrus, a Gentile. The last verses in the Bible is a Gentile speaking. And Cyrus is saying, who is it among... You've got to remember, the Jews are exiled in the Babylonian, then the Medo-Persian Empire, and God raises up this guy by the name of Cyrus, and he's going to help the Jewish people to go back home. and rebuild the temple. And the word that he uses, who is it amongst your people? Let him make aliyah. We talked about that, going up. And it was this Gentile man, this Gentile leader, that actually helped the construction of the temple.